Strange things are afoot at the Circle K.
That kid is back on the escalator again.
Ain't gonna hurt.
Is my boomstick!
Game over, man. It's game over.
Welcome to the Bargain Bin. He is your host, Ben Mason.
And he is your co-host, Sandra Luketic. And today we are talking about 1990's Prayer of the Rollerboys. We assume that if you're listening to this episode, you've already seen the movie. So, dude. Going right into it. What did you think?
This movie was a steaming pile. I don't know why you made...
suck.
I don't know why you made me watch. Let me ask you a question, okay?
Fine.
In what era, 80s, 90s, today, is a group of synchronized rollerbladers supposed to be intimidating?
It's the brown trench coats, man. And they're racists.
Okay, I want to talk about that, but not yet, because I think that's one of the more deeper themes that I actually can talk about. But seriously, like, why rollerblades? They are irrelevant to this entire movie.
It has to be the time. Like, that's the only thing that makes sense to me. Inline skating, like rollerblading, early 90s, that has to be it. They're trying to capitalize on some fad. I don't know. I think it's hilarious, but I love it.
Yeah, I think it's hilarious. So even in the 90s, okay, you are working on the cast of this movie, the crew of this movie, wherever, some level of interaction with this movie. And you see that scene that they use a couple of times of them almost slow motion synchronized skating. You're going to think, oh man, that's going to scare people. That's a gang.
Yeah, it's basically the Flying V.
Which, I mean, even there, it's used for its ridiculousness. Here, it's supposed to be intimidating. This is a gang. And I mean, don't get me wrong, a lot of what they do, they could still do, and the movie be the same, but they added rollerblades.
Yeah, I don't know. Like, one thing I found really interesting is that you don't really see a lot of them driving cars or anything.
But you see them outrunning cars. I guess maybe that's the part I'm missing of these rollerblades, that they grant magical powers. You can dodge bullets after the sound of the bullet leaving the chamber, and you can outrun vehicles.
There is one really good rollerblading scene that doesn't really involve rollerblading, but I love it. And it is when Griffin is being chased by Gary Lee up the stairs and they're wearing rollerblades. That was super impressive.
But it's not necessary. I mean, like, the only scene...
Oh, God, no.
The only scene I can think of that they needed the rollerblades to do would be the initiation scene.
Yeah.
But even then, if the premise was that they were, like, sneaky, it could have been, like, a stealth recon mission or something. But,
That's true. I did really like that, though. That was a really clever move, using the tactic of, like, the initiation. You have to grab a security badge as a distraction. I thought that was pretty smart for a movie that really is pretty dumb.
I mean, don't get me wrong. That was a fun scene, if you want to look at it like that. It was entertaining. There was some action. It was high-paced. But it just didn't make sense. It didn't matter. I don't understand.
No, it really didn't.
Like, and come on. Can we talk about the Rollerboys?
Sure.
Too young to be intimidating. Drug runners, racists, drug dealers. Like, okay, I said drug runners and drug dealers. But, like, they packed way too much into it.
They did. They really did. And I also don't understand how they have so much power and why they're so intimidating. Because if you watch the movie, everyone reveres them. Yet, there's like 12 of them.
Well, I think it's a revolving door, right? Because they talk about how many have, like, they've lost, and then recruiting new members and starting them young. But that's the part that I also find odd. People look up to them, but then also people fear them as a gang. Like, which is it?
Yeah, it's pretty muddled. But I mean, that is also 90s filmmaking.
Like, they could go with a more Robin Hood type theme, where maybe they're viewed as villains as a gang by the authority, but they're stealing from the, like, evil to give to the good. But they don't really do that. So the fact that they have that contrast of some sects of people looking up to... Like, when they have Patricia Arquette's character what was her? Casey, come into Speedbagger's shop at the beginning, and Milty's like, "Oh yeah, my brother's the fastest blader," and she's like, "Well, why aren't you on the Rollerboys?" It's like, so what? Because I'm fast on rollerblades, I gotta look up to these guys and be part of their murderous, racist group because I'm fat. Like, where's the connection?
That makes sense though, because that's her trying to plant the seed of joining the Rollerboys in his mind, because she's obviously trying to like use him as a not undercover, but more of like shit, man. What's the word I'm looking for here?
Patsy?
Patsy or plant. We'll go with plant.
But like even in the first meeting with the police officer, she says he's not the one.
Oh yeah, because she's like a 23-year-old police officer who knows how everything works. Yeah, good
I'm
for
just
her.
saying, like she's trying to recruit him, but at the same time, she doesn't think he's the guy that should be recruited. I don't know if that was just her not seeing it in him, or like that was the director's order from the start. I don't know where this came from.
I think it was an attempt at character development that just kind of fell flat on its face.
Yeah, it did. Much like many scenes in this movie. Okay, maybe I should get a little bit more structured here. Just a little bit more.
Sure.
No, I can't do that. All right, so Milty sees her first. That's the movie opens. He's kind of sorting through the garbage to find... by the way, the whole like scenario that they're in is also unnecessary for the plot. Like it
makes absolutely no sense.
No, and this is another thing. Like, there's just way too much here. Like Gary Lee could have just been an orphan without all of this, dystopian type shit, and it still would have worked, right? But they just threw way too much at the wall for this. But Milty sees her first, and he's like, "Oh yeah, look at her," and I'm like, "What is he seeing?" She's wearing sunglasses, a hat, like this like leopard like vest that covers everything. Not to say that a female can't look attractive in that sense, but she was completely covered up. What is he looking at?
He's just being one of those stereotypical fucking how can I say this? A big shot kid with an overinflated ego that's completely unjustified. I've actually seen people like that before when I was growing up.
But
they've got this weird sense.
Then maybe dress her a little bit more provocatively, or just don't have her cover up everything with glasses and a hat.
Well, I think it really gave something to Milty's character development, because right off the bat, okay, this is that kid's mentality. This is how he is. This is how he's going to be.
Milty annoyed the shit out of me for this entire movie. He flip-flops so much from like good kid, bad kid, drug user. Like I just wanted him to shut up.
Oh, he's the worst character in the movie by far.
Absolutely. Except for the one scene where he gives the little girl in the camp, which again, unnecessary, a piece of pizza where I'm like, "Oh, hey, he's a good guy. Maybe this will come back later." No, there wasn't any karma built up. It was just a random scene.
Yeah, it's like he made an accident by being nice.
But that's like, why did that scene even take place in the movie?
I don't know. I feel like there's a lot of shit that was filmed that was just left on the cutting room floor. Because there is a really good movie here. They just took the shitty parts of it and made that its own film.
Okay, I'm going to challenge you right now. Tell me where the good movie is in this.
I think the idea of teens taking over a city, I guess maybe a country, after a complete economic crash caused by the adults, the complete lack of trust and everything, I think that's a great idea. Obviously, you've got people who are trying to find places of power who aren't smart enough yet to deal with anything. They have never really had to deal with responsibility. They haven't even had to deal with life yet. Now they're thrust into these scenarios where you've got Gary Lee, who's running a racist roller boy gang. You got Griffin, who's looking after his little brother, and all he can do is work at a pizza shop, which, if we're so poor and there's no money, why are pizzerias still open? I don't know. Anyway, I think there's a really good idea here, and it could have been, I think, maybe a series, like a TV series more so than a movie, but they just tried to cram it all into an hour and a half, and obviously, it fell flat. I think it's still really enjoyable, but there are way too many questions left unanswered.
I think that they could have had something here if they went with the simple mantra of less is more. cut out the racism, cut out the rollerblading. You can just have a young gang that has taken over after adults have failed the world, and they're doing so by using drugs. Boom. They just tried to go way too much, and that doesn't fit into the movie. And then there's so many scenes that stick out like a sore thumb. It's just, I can't find much redeeming in this movie, and I don't know why you love it.
I love it because of the passion behind it. Like, yeah, they were reaching for a lot more than they could attain. And it's just fun, man. Like, yeah, there are big ideas that aren't really addressed. The entire movie itself makes no sense whatsoever. But everybody involved is having fun. You can see people trying to progress their careers. Like, Corey Haim gave it his all for sure. Patricia Arquette was amazing in it. I had no idea that she'd be that good.
Patricia
I don't really like
Arquette,
Patricia Arquette.
Patricia Arquette was, in my opinion, the standout role in this one.
Mm-hmm.
And honestly, I don't even think Corey Haim was second best.
Whoa, who's second best?
Mark Pellegrino.
Oh, it's Bango. Yeah, he
Bango
was really good.
Bango was the only one who looked like he was having fun, and maybe not necessarily, like, he was the one that seemed to fit his role. Like, I don't think the casting was well done for the other Rollerboys. Like, to me, Gary Lee didn't seem like a character that was gonna, like, strike fear or elude leadership. Like, he just seemed like the kind of guy who was gonna go door to door and sell me a magazine subscription or something. And then
he was not intimidating at all. He actually looked more intimidated by the role than as an intimidating gang leader.
And I mean, even if he didn't look intimidating, like physically imposing, if we could have seen maybe the guy who was more conniving and manipulating people into doing these things, but he didn't seem to have that kind of mannerisms either, right? Where, like, you can have more frail villains that are doing it with their mind. And then you had Bullwinkle, who...
I hate Bullwinkle.
Like, doesn't look believable holding a gun at any point in the movie.
No.
And he's not intimidating, and he's annoying. But you have Mark, who's gonna be... Bango, who's like the muscle, right? He's not necessarily the brightest, but he's there to do what he's told. And I thought it was better casting. And, like, the scene, especially when they're in the kitchen, the two of them, and he's kind of dancing, and he's, talking about, give the cute ones a little bit more, right? Like, that guy showed more, like, depth to the character, more layers than most other people in the movie, and he had to do it in limited screen time. Yeah.
The weird thing is, like, with Pellegrino, he brings that character to life on screen perfectly. But then you got Morgan Weiser as a Bullwinkle, who, in a movie, you're like, you just don't fit. But if this were a real life scenario, I could easily see that being a legit Bullwinkle. Trying to be aggressive, has nothing to back it up with, super unintimidating, but wants to be the big man. I get it. It just doesn't really work in this movie.
It doesn't, because quite frankly, if you want to say quote-unquote realistic situation, these guys would have been destroyed by the B-13s. I'm sorry, like, it's just, it wouldn't be feasible. Like, yes, this guy might be in the situation where he came up in the orphanages, and he's trying to do good, and he's trying to be, Gary Lee's lackey or whatever, but this dude would have failed a long time ago. He would have caught a bullet well into their existence.
Yep.
Because he's not graceful, he's not conniving, like, there's nothing that would have kept him alive anytime. Like, I get that, like, when they're together, they have the power of the group or whatever, but, like, he goes off on his own so many times, especially when he's trying to investigate Griffin, that, like, that guy wouldn't have survived on his own that many times. Not a chance.
Not at all. Yeah.
And, like, you see the B-13ers, they're using vehicles with mounted weaponry and stuff like that. There's no way they would have lost that easily to these rollerbladers at all.
Well, yeah, Bullwinkle is such a terrible character that we're introduced to him as he's about to die because he screwed himself over.
What do you mean?
When Griffin meets him, when he's in the burning house. Well, the only reason he's alive is because of Griff.
Yeah, but that's not because of him, right? Like, we have to...
I know, but he also allowed himself to get into that scenario.
Well, but I mean, like, let's. I don't know what sort of security they would have had in the original house, but in the new one, in the new kitchen, right? They couldn't leave without Gary Lee's hand. Like, they were stuck inside. So if a fire started, they couldn't get out.
Yeah.
I don't
This
know.
also just seemed like a regular house, though. Like, as I felt the introduction to the Bullwinkle character is like, this guy is an idiot who's going to be a muscle who's going to cause some problems down the road, but nothing will come from it.
Well, he was an idiot.
Yeah, and nothing came from him.
What do you think about the twist that it was the police officers that started the fire in the house? Was that, again, throwing way too much shit at the wall?
It was pretty redundant because they're both bumbling idiots.
But it's also not necessary.
No, completely unnecessary.
The only thing that they did that would have changed anything, I guess, is they're the ones that shot Bango. But if the other cops came in, they probably would have gotten him anyway, whether it was by shooting him or, like, handcuffing him. There was no reason for these two to be in the movie.
No, there wasn't. It was an unnecessary plot point that really didn't add anything to the story. Man, I'm really shitting on this movie for how much I love it.
Which is funny because I'm challenging you to tell me what's good about it.
Honestly, outside of the cops, I actually really enjoyed the acting. I thought Haim was awesome, but obviously I'm a Corey Haim guy. He's my boy. I love all of his movies.
Is it possible that your vision is a little bit clouded? Because I thought, especially the scenes that were supposed to have a little bit more emotion, like when he was talking to the police officer and trying to cut a deal that, you know, like they take care of Milty if something happens to him, he didn't carry the weight of that scene at all.
Okay, well, let me say this right now. Corey Haim should never have been a leading man. Ever.
I'm not going to disagree with you.
No, he needs somebody with more experience to play off of. You see that a lot when he was doing his younger roles like Lost Boys and Lucas. He just became that, teen beat kid, and all the girls loved him, so they thought they could make money off of him and gave him his starring role films. And honestly, once he became a leading actor, he really didn't do that well. The thing is, here, I think he actually really fits the character. The character is completely fallible, and I mean, his acting is not top notch, but I think he fit that role really well. Somebody who's really uncertain about what they're doing, knowing that they have a role to look after a younger sibling, having to be put, like, forcefully put into a gang as an undercover spy of sorts, like I said earlier, a plan. The uncertainty in this movie really works for Haim's acting talent.
But you could have had uncertainty in a different kind of movie. Like, if you want to pose Corey Haim as that teen beat heartthrob, just make a rollerblading movie where they're going to lose their house or something, and he has to enter a competition, get him, skating around and looking good and his hair all done up. Like, you don't need to put him in something that has the same sort of emotional weight. I think it's another downfall of the casting in this movie.
I disagree, man, because I'm pretty sure this was like the same time, roughly, that Gleaming the Cube came out, which was Actually, talking about Gleaming the Cube, I think you could have had a much more convincing villain if you recast Gary Lee with Christian Slater.
Well, I mean, just talent alone, I think Christian Slater could have carried it better anyway. And I mean,
but
Gary
he
Lee
was also in Gleaming the Cube, so having him as the lead in a inline skating movie a year after Gleaming the Cube came out, I think that would have been a smart business move. Sorry, it's completely unrelated. I just had a thought.
No, I mean, it's a very fair critique of the movie. If the movie might have been better with better casting, like, maybe put Gary D in the Bullwinkle role instead. Maybe he won't look as lost. I don't know.
Maybe. I don't know. I do like the look that the actor who played Bullwinkle had, because he just looked like an annoying piece of shit, and that's what the character was. Gary Lee, I forget his name. Is it Chris something? Chris Collet. He almost pulled it off. But I think it might have been the mullet that really ruined things too.
I think he might have still just looked a little too young too. Maybe it was the mullet that contributed it to, but I think if he looked... No, seriously, like, I think if he looked a little bit older, maybe a little bit more kind of like beaten down by the world that he grew up in. Maybe he'd been doing this longer, like a little bit more seasoned, but it just didn't look like he should be where he is right now. It just seemed too much.
I agree. Yeah, it really, like, physically, it looks like he didn't go through anything difficult in his life. And they were talking about the homeless camps. Like, how did you get out? How did everyone go into the homeless camps and get out? Do you just, like, say that you found a home? Somebody help you find a home? It was a loss of world building. And going back to what we were talking about before.
That's what I'm saying. Like, if this didn't have this whole dystopian thing, and these people grew up in the orphanage, and they were a little bit older, you could assume that they were just released because they hit adulthood. Mm-hmm. And like now, not only did their parents let them down, but the system that ejects you once you've hit like 18 in your adulthood has also turned their back on them.
Yeah. And like I said, it would have been much better as like a miniseries or a TV season. Just give them a chance to really flesh things out more than just making grandiose statements about what's happened in the past. Actually show the fallout from all of that.
Yeah, but then they spend more time on all the other useless stuff. Like, don't focus on buying guns from the Asian to buy back America. Don't focus on the racism. Like, pick one of these. Like, just keep it simple. Focus on that. Okay, we grew up in orphanages. The system kicked us out. We went to drugs, so now we can kind of build up our own family. Boom. You don't need all the other stuff.
Yeah.
And you definitely don't need the rollerblading. I don't need 3 minutes of Corey Haim's stunt double dancing around like a skateboard park or whatever at the beginning for no reason at all.
Yeah. That's just early 90s filmmaking, man. You'll find those montages in any movie from 90 to 93 or 4.
So make a movie about rollerblading. How many movies did we have where it's like, okay, this is a sports movie, quote unquote. Rollerblading is what we're doing. That's our competition. Maybe Griffin is a homeless person and he wants to enter a rollerblading contest to win the prize money so that he and his brother can have a place to live. And there's a group of people that are there opposing, like, rollerblading team that are trying to do them in. Fine. Make it a rollerblading movie. This is just a movie with rollerblading.
Okay, basically, like, you just described almost the Karate Kid.
Sure.
So, throw that in the garbage.
Whatever.
This is an entertaining, fun movie, man. You can't just sit back and try and take everything at a critical level of like, well, this doesn't make sense, that doesn't make sense. It's the entire film as a ride. Yeah, it has a lot of faults, but it is a really, really fun movie.
There was some fun parts.
There's a lot of fun parts. Let's talk about something that I have to assume you and I agree on as to one of the best qualities of this film.
Okay.
Julius Harris as Speedbagger.
What am I supposed to agree with here?
He is the best actor in that movie.
I still think it goes to Patricia Arquette. Maybe if Speedbagger had a bigger role.
He had a pretty big role for not being on screen that long. Like,
okay, fair.
His dialogue is absolutely amazing. The lines he delivers carry more weight than anything Patricia Arquette ever said in that entire film.
I don't have any complaints with Speedbagger at all.
Like his complete disdain for Griffin after he joins the Rollerboys. He's like trying to talk to him and he's about to take his sunglasses off and he's like, "Leave him on, son. I know what hate looks like." It's like, shit, man. Yeah. That's a heavy punch.
Yeah.
And then like I don't want your love. I just want you to think about what you're doing, please.
I'm not disagreeing with you,
Amazing.
but I think this is part of where the just piling it on comes into play. Maybe if we didn't have so many subplots, we could have put more focus on that.
Mm-hmm. And like I said, they tried to cram way too much into a short runtime. But there is something else I really want to talk about. During the gang raid, Gary Lee stabs a guy in the dick?
Yes, he does. I said there was parts that I thought were fun.
It just doesn't make any sense.
Well,
he's such a like non-combative, like physically combative guy. Like he'll shoot somebody, but like stabbing a guy in the dick.
Well, he had to.
That's your leader.
But he was in a bad situation. Like he was down. That was a back against the wall type of move. And I love that it came back at the end.
Yeah. Good point.
Like they almost needed that so that okay, you're watching this final confrontation between the two of them, and he's pulling his dagger out, and then the camera angle changes, and Corey Haim's hitting him with the butt of the gun or whatever, and it's just like, yeah, I'm not stupid, right? And I was like, beautiful, because in my mind, that's what I thought. Oh, he's gonna stab him now.
Yep.
But
no,
yeah,
and it's not a bad bit of storytelling, but still, like, what a fucking dick move. No pun intended.
I don't know, man. I have difficulty redeeming this movie. I just... Yes, there was a few good, like, performances. Patricia Arquette and Julius Harris. Mark Pellegrino. But that's about it.
Yeah. I mean, it was an early go for the writer-director, too. I mean, you have to give him credit. He also wrote Point Break. But I really do think that this movie, it lends itself to either a remake or a sequel.
Time out. Now, it is interesting that you say sequel, because it does feel like at the end of this movie, they were definitely sequel baiting.
Oh, yeah, for sure. Driving off down the road with, Griffin, Milty, Casey, and Speedbagger. Yep. 100%. I was really, really excited when I first saw this to watch the sequel, and then sadly found out there was no sequel.
See, I was not excited for a sequel. And I actually thought that it was a little overambitious of the people making this movie to assume that it would warrant a sequel.
I think it would have worked out really well because it ends with them in the RV.
Mm-hmm.
At that point, all you have to do is make a road movie, which is incredibly easy to do. Like I said too, though, that it was a really ambitious move to make this movie, trying to fit that much story into one film. I don't know if they could have done any more world building outside of this. I think you'd have to start all over again and just try and take it slower.
Maybe, but it's almost like this movie would have been better off with a prequel going over what you said. How did they get out of these camps? How did they build up to what they are to flesh it out more than a sequel itself? Not that I want to see that either.
I was going to say, would you watch that? Because I think that's an amazing idea.
I think I would watch it at this point just to fill in some of the gaps because I've already seen the movie.
Mm-hmm.
But on its own merit, I would have no interest in seeing it because then I would have to watch Prayers of the Rollerboys. I'm sorry, man. It feels like you started this podcast for me to like just shit on every movie you love. I don't know what to tell you.
It's either that or I just really love shitty movies. I don't know.
It's very possible. Now, you said remake.
Mm-hmm.
Do you think you could do that?
Me personally? Remake the movie?
On a conceptual level, do you think that you could come up with an idea for a remake that would actually make this good? Sell me on it.
Oh, you put me on the spot.
Yeah, I did.
I don't think you could remake this movie with the exact same storyline. Like I said, it would have to be a TV show. Honestly, in 2020, what sports are really big? Because they were really capitalizing on inline skating. I mean, they're not intimidating in the first place, but you can't really make it skateboarding because that's no better.
But the thing is, I would actually argue that a remake should just do away with the sport aspect of it altogether.
Oh, okay. So you just mean like a fresh retelling of the story, not with similar elements.
Yeah, or do something very basic like parkour. I don't know, like like
Parkour.
not necessarily for the intimidation factor, but like for like being more.
Stay away from that guy. He does backflips.
I meant more just like if they're, say, more thieves than drug runners, right? They can get into buildings or openings a little bit better. But don't listen to me. You're doing the remake.
I didn't know I was doing a remake until right now.
Well,
Okay, let me see. I'd have to have somebody who would have the same on-screen qualities as Corey Haim, because that is the heart and soul of this movie to me.
I think there's a wet paper bag somewhere around here.
Shut up.
What about like motocross?
Okay, you're killing this. No, honestly, I think if you aged everybody a bit more, made them more weathered, it would make more sense. And in that case, I would either get Ben Foster or Joe Anderson to play the role of Griffin. I think you get away with just removing the character of Milty. You don't need the little brother, who's a senseless piece of shit character.
Do you combine that with Casey's character then?
No, I would keep Casey's character for sure. I just don't know who I would cast. Somebody would have to be older to show they've been more experienced as a police officer. Maybe Mila Jovovich.
But why is Griffin doing it then?
Video games.
If there's no brother, why is Griffin doing any of it?
He's doing it for Speedbagger, an elderly man who helped raise him, who has now fallen on hard times and needs the support. But as like Gary Lee, who would be Gary Lee? Oh, okay, I got it, man. You cast Joe Anderson as Griffin, and you cast Ben Foster as Gary Lee, because they have a very similar look and play off of each other very well. It'd be great to see two similar people, the good and the evil, fighting against each other, almost like a mirror image.
See, you already are coming up with a better idea than they did for this movie in a few minutes on the spot.
Well, I've got more to work with than they did, man. It was 1990. It's 2020. You know, this is the best year we've ever seen, right?
Sure. But I mean, from a conceptual standpoint, they could have thought this out better themselves.
But also look at the other movies that were coming out at the time. This definitely follows a trend back then. They were over-the-top, unrealistic films. It was all about pushing up-and-coming stars. That's why you saw Haim. That's why you saw Arquette. And then they'd have some classic standouts like Speedbagger. I mean, he was in TV shows mainly throughout all the 70s and 80s. Like, it's just, that's how things were done at the time. Today, they don't do that anymore. Today, it's all about people who are already well established. Like, they're not pushing any young stars.
Yeah, but do you know how they could have pushed the young stars better? By putting them in a good movie.
Oh, shut up.
Like, you can't build... like, the most prominent actors that we have didn't get where they are by doing, like, Cheerios commercials. Maybe they started there, but then they got good movies. I was going to say,
yeah, they did.
But then they got good movies. This would not have launched Corey Haim into anything.
I do have to say, though, it's kind of weird how they tried to shovel the racist parts of the movie in. I don't really know if it was necessary, but there are some really dark elements to this.
I agree. Really, if they didn't mention that they were racists, would you have really even caught on to it? Like, yes, the B-13ers, they were mostly of different ethnicities, and they did attack Speedbagger, but like they were attacking anybody who didn't pay up for their protection. So like if they didn't outwardly say that they were there as racists and make the like Nazi references, would you have caught on to it?
No, I think they really brought that in just to make them seem that much more evil. But the beatdown of Speedbagger, like, it was a rough scene to watch, but that one line, like, I think they really needed that scene for the one line to show how much of an asshole Gary Lee is when he says, "I like a man who stands by his friends, just can't have friends like that."
Oh, without a doubt, this is probably the most powerful scene in the movie.
Yeah.
Because you see that it's finally not buying in, but it's like finally Griffin is pretending to go along with it.
Yeah.
And it backfires on him so badly.
As bad as it could.
And
it was a great scene. It was also kind of hard to watch for a, early 90s action drama.
Yeah. But how did he not catch on?
I know, right?
Like
Speedbagger is like the only older black man in the movie. Like, they don't show anybody else really. How does he not know?
Or question it at all. Like, okay, I get that he just had a conversation with Gary Lee and he has to show his loyalty, but come on. Like, catch on to what's going on here. But it was probably the most powerful scene. Luckily, they counteract it with ridiculous scenes like, hey, here's the final rope. It's a giant bag of powder with a big skull and crossbones on it.
Day of the rope. Okay, let's get into the drug talk, man.
Sure.
What did you think about the whole Mist plotline?
I think that it could have been the primary and only plotline of this group. Still do the same thing. Maybe instead of saying that the additive was going to, like, make them infertile was going to kill them.
Sterilizing them. I thought it was supposed to kill them on my first watch through.
See, that would have made more sense, because it's like, okay, we want to get rid of the weak. Again, not talking about racism or anything, but like the weak as in the people who succumb to drugs, the people that we prey on, like they've served their purpose and now we're going to get rid of it. Like that alone would have been enough for me to believe the villainous ways of the Rollerboys.
See, I had a similar thought, and then I realized why they did what they did.
Okay.
If word gets out that doing Mist will kill you, probably fewer people will do Mist. No one's going to be like, hey, Mist makes you impotent or sterile. Like,
but would it
that's
get
a great
out?
way of making sure that more people buy into the drug sales.
I don't know if they would necessarily be concerned with that, because the people in the kitchen are the closest ones. They're on a very strict rotation. I don't know how much, like, information other people would have even been privy to. Like, do you think Milty had any idea what the day of the rope was?
No, but that's why they made it clear that nobody in the Rollerboys can do Mist.
Yeah, but what I'm saying is, like, they wouldn't be worried about it getting out. Like, Griffin didn't even know what it was until he got kitchen duty. And it was pretty clear that kitchen duty was only for, like, the closest.
Yeah.
Right? So I don't think they would have necessarily been worried about it getting out if that was the case. And then, if it got out and people are already doing it, there's a lot of people addicted to it. They might not have stopped. Or word might not have spread fast enough, right? I don't think that would have been the concern.
Yeah, that's a very good point. Also, we only really see people on Mist act as if they're, like, slightly drunk.
Yep.
Doesn't really seem like a major issue in society, except for that one guy at the homeless camp being like, hey, got any Mist?
Yeah, but I mean, like, didn't he say earlier in that, when he was talking about the Mist, how it was created by the Chinese to just, like, mostly just, like, chill their people. Like, it wasn't meant to be a hallucinogenic or anything. It was just supposed to calm people.
I missed that.
Yeah, there's a very thrown off line. Gary Lee's talking about it, and he says that it was, I can't remember it, but it's essentially like they were just trying to subdue their population, right? Like they were just trying to create lethargy. They weren't trying to create a hallucinogenic or anything like that.
Mm-hmm.
And then obviously it was implemented in a different way here. But to sum up what you were asking, I think that the drug storyline was good in that sense. Maybe a little bit of tweaking, make it fatal instead of infertile. But it loses some of its impact when it is completely bombarded with all of these other things.
I agree. So it's safe to say that you love this movie.
No,
you do.
I did not enjoy this movie.
No,
and the fact that I
did.
watched it twice
You
for the
totally
sake of this
loved
podcast
it. And that's why you watched it twice, because you liked it so much.
should tell you how much I love you. Because otherwise, I'm not watching this garbage.
Sorry. Well, I've got a better movie lined up for you next time. You ready to hear what it is?
You didn't tell people if you recommended this movie.
Oh, no. I'm kidding. Of course I do. I picked it.
Okay.
I really love Prayer of the Rollerboys. I think it's a lot of fun. It is horribly flawed. I can't make any excuses for that. But it's a really fun viewing. Honestly, it's available for free on YouTube right now. Give it a shot if you haven't seen it already. It's worth, sitting back with a friend, having a beer, watching. It's a really fun time. Is it Citizen Kane? No. Also Citizen Kane sucks. But it's a good time. It's a really fun time, and I highly recommend it.
I'm going to chime in. Don't watch it by yourself. Maybe that's part of it for me. But if you're going to watch it with a friend, rip it apart. Because watching it by yourself with a critical eye is definitely not the way that it was intended.
Well, that was your first mistake. No critical eye on this movie.
All right. Well, what are you subjecting me to next time?
I think you'll like this because it's actually a good movie. Next time, we're going to talk about 2015's Bone Tomahawk.
Lean back. Right there.
Bracing. This is going to penetrate.
Good evening. In civilized towns, you look a man direct in the face when you talk to him.
This isn't comfortable.
It's not supposed to be.
There's a situation. Serious.
Mrs. O'Dwyer was abducted.
She is my everything, and those savages have got her. God knows what they're doing to her, and every second that we delay.
You know who did this? You don't have a name. How many of them do you think there are?
It won't matter. You have no chance against any number of them.
I'm coming with you.
No, I need you here.
And this is what the backup's for, to help an emergency, not stay back. I'm coming.
We're making a 5-day journey in 3 days, riding along and sleeping the bare minimum.
I don't know what's west of here. No cattle trail or anything else goes in that direction.
If our horses die before we get there, or we go into hostile territory, weak and foggy with exhaustion, we won't rescue anybody.
Don't be scared. I am a friend.
You aren't.
Damn you!
You had no cause. If you want to question my morals, do it later.
Bless us, O Lord, and these thy gifts, which we are about to receive.
Ambush!
Okay, well, I mean, you told me that Prayers of the Roller Boy was a good movie, so I'll take it with a grain of salt for now.
All right. Well, look at this. The first line on Wikipedia is Bone Tomahawk is a 2015 American independent Western cannibal horror film.
Whew, that is a mouthful.
Stars Kurt Russell.
We'll see what happens. If you've made it this far, leave us a comment at BS Bargain Bin, Facebook, Twitter. Let us know what you thought of Prayers of the Roller Boy if you checked it out. Make sure to watch Bone Tomahawk for next week. Until then, have a good one.
All the best, guys.